Hey now. Welcome to the 23rd episode of the Help Find the Others podcast. If you've been here all along, well then welcome back. But if this is your first time listening to us, then welcome. I'm your host, Ruben, and as always, my co-host Stan is on the line. How you doing, man?
Doing great.
So this episode, our guest was Daniel, and he hosts a psychedelic integration community called Tam Integration in Marin, California. And this was a really interesting episode. It was it was great to hear about the community he's building and talk about that, and there's a lot of parallels to what you and I are doing, honestly, with our Discord and this podcast and everything. But it was also, I don't know, there was a moment there where we were kind of the focus of the psychedelic integration. I don't know if you felt that.
Oh no, absolutely. It was I guess it was like a taste of his specialty. I guess you could say a taste of what he has to offer. And it was just, for me, it was really cool to see and get a glimpse of what those services are and what the future of that can be. It's just a little blip of time or a little blip of an experience of what it can be once these psychedelics become more and more part of our culture. Yeah. So I hope everyone really enjoys this episode, and I hope you guys really check out all the stuff he has going on and that we talk about in there. So without further ado, I present to you guys Daniel. Well, Daniel, thanks for coming on the podcast.
Yeah, happy to.
Yeah. And I'm glad to see you joined our Discord, and you were recommended from a fellow Discord member, and I've been looking around your website, and it's some very interesting stuff I wanted to talk to you about, but I wanted to start with talking about the Psilocybin Summit. Can you tell us about that?
Well, before we even get to that, I just want to say that I was really happy to see a vibrant community on your Discord. Like that's something that, I would maybe like to have one of these days, and I'm not even sure how I would start doing that, but I guess probably by just having one. But it seems like a real nice bunch of people, and I was even thinking, I don't want to put the cart before the horse, but maybe we could even do an AMA on like your Discord voice channel.
Oh yeah,
absolutely, yeah.
Could be fun if people want to do that. I'd be into it. But the Psilocybin Summit is to start. Have you heard of the 920 Coalition?
Yeah, a little bit. Well, I mean, I've heard of people trying to do 920 as like a holiday kind of thing, like a 420 thing, right? I'm not real sure about that, but
yeah, I don't know how it started either, but there's a 920 Coalition, and there's a couple of folks who are trying to support psilocybin education and awareness and kind of celebration, and they want there to be worldwide events celebrating and educating people around psilocybin. And I kind of wanted to participate in that this year. And at the same time, I sort of became aware of, this online conference software. And at the same time, I lost access to the space I was using for my in-person events. We had this really nice kind of hippie new age bookstore in our neighborhood, and it's a new age bookstore that people like Ram Dass and Alan Watts used to talk at.
Oh,
and it's lived in. It looks like kind of a granola crunchy sort of place, and it's a little musty and dusty, but it had a stage. It had a stage, and there's a really nice guy who was running the tea house right out of the bookstore, and so his lease ended and he had to move, and so I had to move. So I was like, well, I still want to do this content. Like, how do we get educational information that's like at a real high level around psychedelics, entheogens, the science, the culture, the spiritual practices, and still get that to the people. And is this an opportunity to get it to even more people? Right? Because, when I grew up, when I was a kid, everybody was saying, think global, act local.
Mm-hmm.
Right? But that means something totally different now.
Yeah.
Right? It's like, we all know that there's a global village, and like it's even more connected than that. And so why not? I know people all around the world who are far smarter than I am, right? Who are much wiser. Like researchers, scientists, ceremonialists, really great folks from all around the world, and you've probably seen that there's psychedelic conferences all the time now. There's one coming up in Great Britain, the UK, called Breaking Convention, which is really top notch.
Yeah.
But you have to go. And so let's just bring this to the people. And, we have the technology. We can have people give talks. We can have give and take. People can ask questions. Questions can be answered. And it can be real interactive from our own home.
Yeah.
Right? I don't even know where you guys are.
Yeah. Well, yeah. I mean, Stan's in Chicago.
Doesn't even matter.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, we're both separate locations as well, though.
Oh, where are you? So one of you is in Chicago, and where's the other one?
I'm in Ohio.
Ohio. Is that Stan's voice?
No, this is Ruben.
Okay, so I got to figure out the voices.
Sorry.
So that's the summit. And it's going to be 4 days in September.
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah. And we made you guys a coupon code. So people listening, if you go to psilocybinsummit.com, HFTO, help find the others.
Yeah.
They'll get 10% off.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
And so is it so it's what you're saying is it's an online conference, like you are watching the presenters online, correct?
Correct. And and live, you can live. It'll be recorded. People can have access to it afterwards. But yeah, in real time. There's somebody in France, here's somebody in Australia.
And are all the presenters in California at the coffee or the tea house you were talking about, or
no, the tea house is gone.
Oh, I got you.
So no, people are going to be like in their homes all over the world, right? That's the thing that's really nice, is that this is Francois Bourzat is a therapist, and she spent a lot of time with the Mazatec doing traditional healing work with the mushrooms down in Mexico, and she just wrote a book called Consciousness Medicine, which is brilliant. And I invited her, and she was like, "I'm so sorry, I'm going to be in France." It's like, it's okay, you can be in France.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I mean it's a great idea, because I like you mentioned breaking, and I've noticed there's one in there's a psychedelic conference in Detroit, and there's all of these conferences, and I've talked to people that do travel to them and stuff like that, or they happen to be in their city, but there's a lot of people like myself, and like you said, about our Discord, a lot of the people that are on our Discord are people that have resonated with like my situation and family life and stuff like that. And like, I can't go to England to go to a conference no matter how bad I want to, even if I could afford it. Like, I just couldn't do it. So it is, it's a definite, solution to a definite problem that the global psychedelic community faces. So it's a really awesome idea.
Right. And you know what I see on your Discord? I haven't spent a lot of time. You guys reached out, I think, yesterday, and now all of a sudden we're here, which is great. But what I see on your Discord is questions. Is people have a lot of questions. This is information that's had to have been kept underground for so long. It's very interesting. It's mystifying to people. There are ways where you can do it wrong. People can kind of get hurt, and people don't want to get hurt. And that's and that's great. People want to do things smart, and they want the wisdom of their community, and more and more, we're moving from the awareness. There was a time, when I was a kid, when I was in high school, we were a little bit berserk. We were kind of wild, and it was just like, what do you got? Let's do it. However much do we have? We'll just split it between us equally, and we'll just do it all.
Yeah.
And there wasn't a lot of, all of the education we got was basically just, off of Beatles records. There wasn't, our parents' record collection or something like that. And that was like a very particular kind of subset of society, right? It's like a very particular kind of person is willing to do that. And I don't know if it's good or bad. Gabor Mate has some ideas, but what we're seeing more is that an increasing number of people are willing to try it who are more constitutionally cautious. And so, being that this will still benefit them, right? We know that it's gone, that even the recreational use is sacred, and even the recreational use is therapeutic. And I'm not talking about like flat out abuse. I mean, but, going into the woods, going camping with your friends and eating mushrooms can be very sacred and very profound and very healing. It can change that. Just something like that can change somebody's life, right? They don't need to just be in a box with a therapist, although sometimes that's interesting too. So being that we know deep in our bones that this has a potential to heal a great number of people, we want to make sure that those people also have the support that they need.
Yeah. Yeah, no. And that's, that's like with our Discord. I mean, I think a common, thread between all the people on there is they don't have many people in their family or friends or whatever that they can ask the questions or find out, what's this dosage I should take of this? I just got this stuff or whatever. And it is a community to ask those questions and know you're going to get honest answers from people that, want you to be cautious and want it to be sacred, that, a lot of us have gone through that. Like you said, when I was in high school and stuff like that, I was pretty reckless with psychedelic drugs. I mean, I didn't know what a microgram was. I didn't know how much you were supposed to take. I didn't know what mushrooms looked like, let alone like the dosage. Like someone could have sold me poison mushrooms and I wouldn't have known the difference, And so that is a thing, not just with Discord servers and YouTube and stuff like that, but sites like Earwid or other stuff. There is so much information now for the psychedelic community to be more educated and to understand the sacred nature of it. Because I do feel like while I learned a lot during my reckless teenage use of psychedelics, I didn't understand how important it was. I knew it was more than just a drug, but I didn't understand how important it was until I started reading, books and Earwid and online stuff. And then that's when I all of a sudden felt this motivation to build a psychedelic community, and just by being honest and open, it's amazing that the kindred spirits that I've been able to, resonate with and it's just amazing to watch it grow. And, I imagine you've experienced the exact same thing.
Yes.
Yeah. So, so yeah, the Psilocybin Summit definitely sounds great. And, thank you for offering that coupon code to anyone listening.
I also do want to say, I apologize for having an ad.
Oh no! I mean,
it's like I always
it's
feel
a worthy ad.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So why don't you tell us about your Tam Integration service and what you do with that in that community?
Right. So Tam is the mountain in Marin. I'm in Marin County, which is just on the other side of the Golden Gate Bridge from San Francisco. And the mountain in the center of it is Mount Tamalpais, which is called Tam for short. And so I picked the name because, I feel like it's nice to honor the land, and I feel like it's kind of, in shamanic traditions quite often, or even I come more from like a yogic lineage, and even in the tradition, there's holy mountains, and people circumambulate the mountains, and they climb to the top of the mountain, and this has references to kind of the spiritual journey, right? Climbing the mountain. Even if you look at Alex Gray's art, there's a series where the guy goes to the top of the mountain to receive, the hidden treasure, and then bring it back to the community. So that's why we chose the name. But what the practice is, there's a few different programs that we offer. The kind of flagship, the main thing we do is our group integration circles, community integration circles. And so it's really funny. This whole time, I was at a circle yesterday, and a woman who was in the circle referred to it as a support group. And I thought that was interesting because I never thought of the integrations as a support group. I kind of just always thought of them as a part of practice. I thought of it more as almost like a meditation practice where people spoke, or a council of sorts, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
But I do understand that, we are in fact supporting each other, right? So support is happening. So by definition, it is a group that is supporting each other, and it's supporting, health and growth and well-being, and people who are having journeys that they don't have anybody else to talk to them about, right? They have questions about their journeys. They have confusion. Sometimes they have brilliant insights. I had a guy come in one time, and he was like, I thought I knew what I was getting myself into, and I was so wrong in the best possible way. And I thought that was just so adorable, that this guy had come to, to share his joy, and like he didn't have very many friends who engage, right? Who engage in medicine work. So the format is basically, it's a 2-hour block of time. And we do a meditation at the beginning, we do a meditation at the end, and somebody will share their story, and then they're welcome to receive, non-judgmental, non-directive feedback, right? People can, offer their thoughts. We try and shy away from giving anybody advice. We don't try not to, put anybody on the spot with questions that might make them uncomfortable, but just try to create an environment where a real high level discourse is going to evolve. People are able to be real, like appropriately vulnerable, and find strength in that, and kind of share their piece of the puzzle, right? Do you guys know those you also interrupt me because I'll just go on and on. But have you ever, those old cowboy movies where like everybody has like 1/5 of the map, and they have to like put the map together to find the treasure?
Yeah, yeah.
That's what it's like coming back from a psychedelic trip.
Yeah,
it's like you've got like part of a map, and you kind of know what happened, but you kind of don't. And you go into integration circle, and someone will share a story, and it will recontextualize something that happened for me 10 years ago.
Yeah.
And I'll be like, oh, that whole, it just shifts my whole mental state, right? It just pushes a little Tetris block right into place.
Yeah, for sure.
And so we do that for each other. And at the same time, so just the listening heals us, and it also heals them. Right? Everybody is healed and made more whole just by the act of being present with each other.
Yeah.
So it's a practice of presence.
Yeah, I mean, I think, that's something I've noticed with just making YouTube like trip reports and then talking with people in emails about that is like, part of the confusing part of like a difficult trip or something like that is feeling like you're the only one that's ever experienced what you just experienced. And hearing someone else that went through the same thing and has a similar, but also, like you said, another piece of the map, is so comforting and like, calms a lot of anxiety that you have about, questions and stuff like that. So I totally get that.
Right.
So, so do you have a venue that you have these integration circles at, or is it always somewhere else, or?
Well, I don't have I'm not the proprietor of a venue. We meet there's a very nice community space called The Hive in Marin, and they will have, a yoga workshop one day, and they'll have like a sacred sexuality workshop, and they'll have there'll be a cacao ceremony, and you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it's one of these sort of kind of community, very high vibe community space, and we fit in pretty good there. And then we do one in the city at a place called Polaris Insight, and Polaris is a really neat spot. It is they do ketamine assisted therapy there, and they also are participating in the MAPS trials.
Oh, okay.
With MDMA phase 3 trials, and actually on my YouTube channel there is an interview with a couple of the doctors, and they talk about therapeutic ketamine. It's pretty interesting. Again, finding these therapeutic uses for things that we had no idea, right? We had no idea that it had this capability. Well, some people did, but more and more kind of the words getting out.
Mm-hmm. And how frequently do you host these? I mean, is it just once you have enough people interested, or is it a monthly thing, or what do you do?
At the moment we're doing one a month in the city and one a month in Marin.
Oh,
and every once in a while I will do more than that in a month if it starts to get really full. It gets full, and then it gets a little quieter, and then it gets a little fuller, and it gets a little quieter. When Michael Pollan came through on his book tour, it was gangbusters. It was too many people.
Oh, yeah.
Which is really interesting because you would think that we're trained in capitalism that more is better.
Yeah.
Right. And then you get 30 people and it's a bug out.
Yeah.
Yeah. Whereas 8 to 10 is cool.
Yeah.
It's like perfect.
Yeah. And then sometimes, depending on schedule, I will do sitting for psychonauts. I've been a meditation teacher for like 20 years. And so sometimes I will go to, my friend has an art gallery where he shows psychedelic and visionary art. And that's a really fun place to have a meditation class. And so I do that sometimes. And then we have speaker series. Right now I'm focusing mostly on the summit, but, it's really nice to get, a group of people together and, have a talk about something in person as well.
Yeah. No, that's really awesome. Do you, much like with the idea behind the Psilocybin Summit, do you do any online group integration like that, or one-on-one integration stuff or anything like that, or is it all in person?
I have been working on the idea of having group integration circles and sort of preparation group classes. That will probably happen in 2020. This project for me is about a year and a half old.
Mm-hmm.
And things move as fast as they do. But I do a lot of private coaching.
Gotcha.
So I do a lot of one-on-one stuff, and that's really rewarding and exciting, to really, because it's like, how do I say this? If you do it right, you get this real sense of really being inside somebody's mind and heart with them.
Mm-hmm.
It's like when you're teaching group meditation, you sort of give somebody a practice, you give the room a practice, and then you kind of let them do it for a while.
Yeah.
And you just sort of have to trust that the work is happening inside. But when you're one-on-one and you're talking and you're asking poignant questions and giving people a chance to sit with things and respond, you're sort of meditating with them. And you get this kind of shared meditation space where new information comes up. That's like kind of the point of coaching, is the understanding that people are super resourceful and bright and capable.
Yeah.
And if you kind of give them, help to kind of slow down, the mind that's just usually just busy doing its regular stuff, and you give them a little space to look at what's really important to them, you'll get some amazing new information.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I feel that because, I get a lot of emails with some real difficult questions of people that obviously need integration coaching, and they'll send me this email with, really intense questions about intense topics and stuff like that. And just out of the blue, like I've never talked to them before. And,
yeah,
usually my advice is to possibly seek out some sort of therapy if it sounds super intense or something that I don't want to, even try to touch. But often I'm like, I don't know how to answer this in just an email. Like I need to have a conversation with you. And, I offer them to talk on Skype and offer my point of view. Not that I think that I'm even, closely able to do that properly. But, if you are going to email me and ask, like I will, but it's like, there's certain situations that need a one-on-one conversation at least. And unfortunately, I see so many people that it's like that's too much for them, and then they just don't respond to the email after that. And it's like, it's like,
sure.
I feel like kind of like I let them down and then I didn't, answer in the way that they wanted to. But it's like a lot of this stuff needs discussion. And that's the whole point of this podcast too, honestly, is like, you can read people's stories and stuff like that, but having a discussion about their story is such a much more engaging and healing way to talk about this stuff. And so like, yeah, I totally get what you're saying about, the one-on-one, discussion is the best way to handle this,
Right. Well, I will rarely give in-depth email answers.
Yeah.
I also get, I have a lot of fun with Instagram. I think Instagram is really fun for me. I like making memes, and I feel like you can get a lot of. It's a medium that is really interesting to me right now.
Mm-hmm.
And so I'll get Instagram messages, and it's hard to. I can't do it. Like I mean, just based on the fact alone that will have to answer typing on my phone is almost enough of a barrier. But it also doesn't do it justice. The question and the intensity of the experience, and it almost it doesn't feel ethical to me, to be honest.
Yeah.
Right. So when you're saying is like, so there's an ethics of trying to work with somebody you're not qualified to work with. Right.
Yeah.
And then there's just an ethics of the medium of it. The methodology is not going to best serve anybody. And there's too much of there's already too much misunderstanding in voice.
Yeah.
I guarantee you we've said things already that have been that people have heard it differently the way that I've meant it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right? We misunderstand each other all the time when we're calm. Right? This is actually something I learned from I study some NVC, nonviolent communication, and my teacher says we misunderstand each other when we're calm. When we're upset, we barely hear anything.
Absolutely, yeah.
Right? So if we've got somebody who's like in a state, because they had like a really hard time, I want to be really kind to that person. Like I want to give them the most care I possibly can and really look out for them. And I can't do that on email. I can't do that on Instagram. It's impossible.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean that's and I think part of it is, like we said, how there's people that don't have anyone to talk to. There's a lot of paranoia and fear, basically due to the illicit nature of this medicine, and there's even though people are reaching out to someone that has put themselves out there, put their face out there, put their voice out there, there's a need for anonymity still. And
well, that's why God invented Signal.
Well, right. But what I'm saying is when I offer that Skype call, that breaks that barrier of anonymity for them, and then they're like, I can't do that, And so like, I think that's part of the problem with that. Do you run into that where people are like, I want to talk to you, but I don't want you to know my name? Or do you have anyone that comes, to the face-to-face stuff, but wants to treat it like Alcoholics Anonymous or something like that, where there's no names, or how does anonymity get treated with
well, Alcoholics Anonymous does use names.
Yeah.
But at the beginning of the meeting, so I embodied expressions of agreement, right? So we do have some sort of ground rules, like you're not going to try and buy and sell drugs at the circles, right? We're not going to do anything that puts us or yourself or the space at risk, right? We're grateful that the space has allowed us to use it. We're not going to disrespect it in that way, right? And everybody's cool with that, right? No, and then so when I say an embodied expression of agreement, I mean we all raise our hands to say okay. Right? Yeah. It's just a very fancy way of saying it. And so what I say is, this is confidential. We're all going to agree that we do not repeat what is said in here. And everybody raises their hand. And then I say it's also anonymous, which means that we don't even acknowledge that we saw people here. Right? Like if you go to a fancy board meeting and you see somebody from here, you're not going to run over to them and be like, oh, hey, you're the guy who took your clothes off on acid.
Yeah.
Right? We're going to you could give them a wink and you're just going to go on and do the stuff that you do.
Yeah.
And I do have people so first of all, integration circles are free. They're by donation. It's like there's a bowl out. I tell people that it's appreciated if they put money in the bowl. I do not say, please put money in the bowl or you have to. Right? I just say it's appreciated.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's important to me that nobody is pressured.
Yeah.
And you can offer your donation online, right? There are tickets, quote unquote tickets, right? I've never turned anybody away ever for having too many people or for any kind of financial reason. So there are people who will not use the online thing because of privacy.
Yeah.
And that's fine. And I have people who will only speak to me via Signal rather, which is, end-to-end encrypted.
Right. Yeah.
And that's fine too. It doesn't seem like I mean, I know there's always risk, but it doesn't really seem like there's that much risk, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
It's not like the DEA is not looking for kids eating mushrooms in their mom's basement or like in the woods.
Yeah.
It's more so for the comfort value though, for the individual, right?
Yeah, I suppose so. And well, it's also like just in culture. It's cultural. Like we've been taught to fear.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which we also need to stand up against. Right? We can't live like that.
Yeah.
You can't live in fear.
Yeah.
When I grew some weed in college, back when it was illegal, and the grocery store had a sign on the wall that said "Perfect love casts out all fear." And I think that's from the Bible. I don't know exactly, but it seems like a biblical kind of thing. But it's not. But it's nice. It's like, can love and fear exist in the same space in your heart?
Yeah.
And so it's like, what are we carrying around in our hearts? Like, you don't want fear there. You want to be smart, and maybe being smart means you're anonymous. I don't know. These are important concerns. They don't actually come up a lot because, maybe because I'm in the Bay Area, and things are pretty permissive around here.
Yeah.
And decriminalized nature just happened in Oakland. Big shout out to those guys and the great work that they're doing.
It's a lot different compared to Midwest or, even I can't imagine the South.
Yeah.
Right.
And I think that's where like the ability to remain anonymous is key for a lot of people. Like that's why you get, that's why on the Discord channel there's no real names. It's all screen names. And
right.
Real information is rarely disclosed.
Right. Interesting. Cool.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that going back to the summit, I think the idea of an online summit somehow would be brilliant. And I really do love that part of your integration circles as well as the summit is promoting listening in conversation and not interjecting your opinion or direction to somebody else's life. That's so important. And it's hard to avoid doing, even in my own, even while I'm talking, it's hard to avoid doing.
Right.
And that's why I admire it. I think that's a great goal to have.
Well, what's up with that is that it's part of the reason is to dismantle the ego.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Or to recognize, and not even dismantle it, because how can you dismantle an imaginary thing? But to move yourself into a place where your sense of self is not the most important thing. Right? So for the most part, I work with people and I work with my own mind. And one of the things that I see is that the place that most suffering comes from is from self-reference and self-centeredness. Right? What's going to happen to me? Am I going to be okay? Are people going to like me? Are people going to think that, I'm smart enough and good enough? Am I going to have all the things that I need? Right? What do all those things have in common?
You.
Yeah, me. And so it's like, it's very different. Like if I say to you, think of money, your mind creates, some thoughts about money and what it's all about. And then think about this, my money.
Yeah.
It's a whole different world.
Mm-hmm.
And so for the most part, we're just running around thinking about ourselves all day long. Right. And it shows up so much, like if we in a ceremony or, a journey, we can get very wrapped up in ourselves. And then, we finally give up, and it seems we recognize the preposterousness of it. We go beyond the ego, we call it death or something like that. So just to have a couple of hours out of your month where you're actively listening to what somebody else is saying for once in your life is a total spin.
Yeah.
Right? Like how much can you just spend time not thinking about yourself?
Yeah, or the big thing for me is not thinking about the next thing to say while you're listening.
Mm-hmm.
It's another key.
It's another key because, that comes back to like, I have to be the one who knows.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Like I have to have something to say. I have to be, and it's interesting when you do see people who show up and they're proving that they know.
Does that get in the way at all of somebody else's story sometimes?
Oh, totally.
Yeah.
And to be, and not to turn this into a different kind of conversation,
mm-hmm.
but it's almost always like an older white guy. It's like a 50 plus, it's a 55, 60-year-old, professional, white guy who just knows everything and knows what's best for everybody.
Yeah.
And what are you going to do? It's like, we talk about using I language versus you language. You familiar with this kind of stuff?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So it's like, that's one of the ways that like we keep a lot of the advice to a minimum. Is like, I feel for me, like when I'm in a situation like that, a cup of warm tea is really helpful.
Yeah.
As opposed to what you need to do is drink more tea.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's a totally different vibe.
Interesting. I could see that. I could see that totally getting in the way of somebody's openness, though.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and and then it's my job to like manage that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's a challenge.
Which is a challenge, and you know what also is annoying about it is it takes away from me getting to be brilliant.
How so?
Because I want to be that old white guy too.
Oh yeah.
but except the thing is I would do it right.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like I really feel like I got good answers for people. And I do get to share them enough because the thing is, if you when you run the group, like people will sometimes look at you like, are you going to chime in? Like they sort of want someone to like sort of, ground it out a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
And so I do get a chance to share, but sometimes it is a lot of energy to manage, in the room. It's like you've got 20 trippers, like, think about where we recruit.
Yeah.
It's like you got 20 trippers in a room, like, of varying degrees of like feeling good about themselves and varying degrees of like confusion and clarity and just trying to like get everybody to like vibe right, is a balancing act.
Yeah.
Sometimes.
Do you get something that we talk about occasionally on this podcast is how there's a big competitiveness to dose amount. Do you get any one-upping at all with people's stories, or is it more so personal always?
No, I don't know if we get a lot of that really.
Okay. That's good.
Yeah. And we the other night we talked at length about microdosing.
Good.
Right?
Yeah.
So people are like real into microdosing and sometimes there is discussion. Yeah, it's not competitive like that necessarily. Every once in a while it's like it's not necessarily dosing, but like there was one guy who wanted everybody to know he had done more ayahuasca trips than everybody else.
Yeah. It's stuff like that.
Stuff like that. He hasn't been back, which is good.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I shouldn't say stuff like that. I love everybody who comes to the circles. But seriously, like also like I was sort of, there are occasions where I sometimes feel like I have to talk about consent even in the circles, right? Like I can't have guys like touching women without their permission.
Yeah.
Or like just sort of like pressuring them or things like that. It's like it doesn't happen a lot, but every once in a while there's like a little bit of energy like that, and it's like not cool.
Very not cool. No. How do you end up dealing with that?
I might have put it in my frequently asked questions and it sort of went away. Like I sort of, I went into the etiquette, I believe. And I think I wrote something about that in the etiquette, and it sort of cast a spell, and it just stopped. And that guy went away, and it never happened again.
Good.
But yeah, if you look at the etiquette down there, creating a culture of conscious consent. This is for a place for safe vulnerability. Be conscious about other people's boundaries.
Yeah.
Right. Ask for consent before physical interactions. Respect when they say no. Don't take it personally. Pay attention to other people's body language and see if they are enthusiastic about the interaction that you're having. Right? Which again brings us back to like, can you pay attention to something other than your own agenda for once in your life?
Yeah.
Like, well, can I actually, like, yes, okay, I want to have a relationship with this person. I want to learn about them. I want to get close to them. Can I take a moment to get out of that script and look at their face and their body language to see if they're trying to get away from me? And if they are, just let them.
Mm-hmm.
You know, because especially, like, you know, when you know, consciousness altering medicines come into the picture.
Yeah.
Like,
vulnerability.
People are more vulnerable. People are less able to advocate for themselves.
Yeah.
And so it's like,
especially if somebody's coming confused, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. So that's the thing. Yeah, you know, you try and I don't know all the ins and outs of it. You know, it's like, well, I would really suggest, and I can turn you on to, you know, there's some women I know who are like real experts and real tuned into things like consent.
Mm-hmm.
You know, that are better at me. You know, it's like, I'm like an old married white guy, you know, that like just hangs out at home with his wife and like is not looking for any trouble. You know, there's like people who are like, you know, who go to festivals, who are working with real situations,
Yeah.
you know, like people who this is more important to them, that are better suited to it than I.
Yeah. One of our guests that we had on that has done a ton of ayahuasca retreats in South America and elsewhere. That was one of the things he brought up, was there needs to be rules, even though it's pretty standard or should be standard in people's minds. There needs to be rules when you're at 100+ person ayahuasca ceremony and there's a bar that is serving ayahuasca and you can just go up and fill up, you know, just like you're going to grab a Bud Light or something. There needs to be rules there because of how vulnerable and open these people become.
Well, it's not just rules. There has to be responsibility.
Yeah. And you hope that it's in people's minds, but it's not always.
Right. It's not always. And it's sort of like, and that's the thing, is like about being men. Like, so we're three men on a podcast. And, you know, really there should probably be, you know, there should be a couple of women to call us out on our shit right now, you know, in case, because I'm sure we will say something that is less than woke. But how do we create, you know, and then we're also not young, right? It's like, you guys aren't like in your 20s.
I am.
You are?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, good. So you're like the next generation of conscious man. And so it's
that's an honor if that's the case. I'm not sure.
Well, I want you to choose it.
Yeah.
I want you to commit to that.
Definitely trying.
And so, you know, we've all grown up in a culture where, you know, things are brushed off. You know, people's feelings, you know, women's feelings are made less important than our own. You know, their needs have been made less important than ours. And so, like, it's time to create like a culture, hopefully fueled by, you know, these plant medicines that come from Mother Earth, that we treat our sisters better.
Yeah.
And, you know, that we treat people like our friends and family, you know, and that we, you know, don't, you know, that we're appropriate in our, you know, communication.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's like nothing wrong with flirting with somebody, you know, if they're stoked about it, you know, and sometimes you don't know until you try. But, you know, it's like, how do we create even a space where women feel comfortable? You know, it's like, I want a world where people of all of the genders can hit on each other and then be okay with with hearing no, and just moving along. And then people's personal space is respected, and, you know, people aren't like messed with for wanting different things than you want, and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
It's our job.
And you know, I think like 99% of the psychedelic community feels that way, but there's still, and there's always going to be a certain percentage involved with the psychedelic community that doesn't get that, you know, and no matter how much enlightenment or awakening they have, they still don't get that respect of boundaries. And it's one of the things that scares me about the, the revolution with psychedelics, especially in this country, with being used for therapy, is that there could be, as psilocybin is a breakthrough therapy, and as it moves through, all the trials, and it becomes, an accepted therapeutic, thing, there could be a million amazing, life-changing therapy sessions that won't get any media coverage. But the one dickhead therapist that sexually assaults a patient or client or whatever while they're in their state, that's what the media will pick up on, and that's what everyone will think psychedelic therapy is about. And it's unfortunate, but
it's unfortunate. But, and also, I don't want to like come off holier than thou, because like, again, like, I'm just sort of like an old guy sitting at home, but I've had like in my I was messy in my 20s. Like, I was sloppy in my relationship sometimes. Like, I didn't always take the hint super well. I wasn't, I might have misrepresented, what I was in it for, with a woman that I wanted to spend time with. So it's kind of like, and then a lot of that might have been wrapped up in, again, like myself, right? My self-esteem. Like, oh, it's like, I do this because, to feel good about myself, to be validated or whatever. And so there's like a lot of stuff under the surface, for all of us. It's not just one thing. I just wanted to say, and I just wanted to out myself as like not thinking that my shit doesn't stink. So, I mean, which is, I think, also important, is like, if it's the worst thing in the world to like sometimes be selfish, be a selfish lover sometimes, it's like, no one would admit to it, and nobody will work on it. So it's like, yeah, we're messy. We're all just like super messy humans. We fuck up all the time, and hopefully we say we're sorry and we get better.
Mm-hmm.
How the hell did we get on this topic? When you guys steer us out of this?
We're all just trying to figure it out, man, day at a time.
Yeah.
But yeah,
and, I mean, can we take a pee break?
Oh yeah, go ahead, man.
All right, thanks.
We just have bladders of steel from doing this. It's just practice. Dude, that's true though about what I wanted to kind of go more into that last comment you made, because it's undoubtedly going to happen. I mean, just look at the fucking Olympic doctor that, like, you have the U.S. Olympics team, and that happens. You know what I mean? And so much probably underreported on lesser known doctors or lesser profile doctors. Sure. And it's just going to be a matter of time before something like that. I mean, that was huge when we talked to Rob, and he brought up, I think actually you might have brought up MDMA, like that, I don't know. That was big. Definitely a sad part of the revolution.
Yeah. I think that's what's important about the, like, Johns Hopkins model of psychedelic therapy, is there's a male and female sitter. There's always two people, and they're separate sexes for no matter what the patient is. I mean, that's like an essential part of that therapy.
All right, what did I miss?
We were just talking more about Ruben's last comment about the undoubtedly situation that a therapist takes advantage of someone, whether it be psilocybin, MDMA, and Ruben brought up Johns Hopkins, if you want to get back into that.
Well, no, just that the model for that therapy, which actually they didn't come up with. I think that was Captain Tripp's Al Hubbard, like, came up with the idea for that. And that's another psychedelic character. That's another rabbit hole to go down. But there's always, in those sessions, there's a male and a female sitter, no matter what the sex of the patient is, to kind of that scenario, it can't happen in that, like, there can't be any sort of miscommunication signals that people are sending or anything like that. But it's interesting to think that there's in a group setting that there's still people that misread sexual signals. But what is a pretty common kind of problem that people come to an integration circle looking to figure out with a existential crisis or something that they might have had with a psychedelic trip? What's a really common thing? Is every circle different?
Right. Well, again, it's not always problems.
Mm-hmm.
And really, you can boil like all the problems down to almost like what happened wasn't what I wanted to happen or wasn't what I expected to happen.
Yeah.
But that's all problems in life, really.
Yeah. Because whenever I've had a difficult trip, one of the hardest things that I come out of it with that lingers, and it's not the questions, like I like trying to like be like, oh, I had this idea about the universe and whatever, I'm trying to figure it out. But when I say that I've had a bad trip or a difficult trip, it's this inner dialogue that I somehow come out of the trip with, like nothing in this like life is this life is so temporary that nothing matters, and like why go through all the pain? And I try to like immerse myself in like kind of Zen Buddhist, like life is pain because of attachment, and I try to like kind of get that mantra in my head to get that. But that's one of the most like psychologically damaging things I think of a bad trip is almost I wouldn't say suicidal, because it's like I never like come up with a plan to end it all or whatever, but like 90% of trips I come out with a lust for life, but there is this like 10% where I'm like, why am I putting myself through this suffering, or whatever? And is that a common thing that people sign up for circles with that kind of idea?
Sometimes. Mm-hmm. I am curious. What I'm really curious about is what makes you keep going on.
Loved ones and family, honestly. That's what always like, that's my rock, is like, I come out of it, I'm not saying that those kind of negative feelings stick with me, but it's like, it'll be like 2 or 3 days or a week where I'm like, and it's not even depressed, it's just like,
mm-hmm.
I just had a reality shattering experience, and then now I'm back to like being frustrated because the dog tore up something and whatever, and it's like, why? There's so much more to the universe, and I've talked to a lot of people that come out of difficult bad trips with that, and
right,
and that seems to be part of like what's key to integration after a difficult trip is like understanding that life is pain, and
well, life has pain.
Yeah. Well, we're right.
I didn't mean to interrupt you, though. No, I didn't mean to interrupt. I'm sorry.
No. You're right. That that's what keeps you going. If to answer that is that it's an aspect of it, and it's the yin and yang. That like if there wasn't pain, there wouldn't be ecstasy. And all of the varying degrees in between. And that's how I kind of integrate. Is like I have to realize that. I have to realize that dichotomy to life. To actually even enjoy life. Like, my life is great. My life is blessed. But if I didn't have these moments of like pain and misunderstanding and frustration and all the negative aspects of life, then I wouldn't truly enjoy the other stuff. And I think that's the key to being an optimist. An optimist isn't walking around thinking everything's great all the time. An optimist is knowing this too shall pass when it's not good.
Right. Well, here's my question is, well, what are you here for?
Yeah, I don't know.
like in your body on the planet for this life.
Yeah, I haven't figured that out yet.
Right. Well, what if you could like just pick something?
Well, I mean, honestly, it's doing stuff like this, podcasting and YouTubing and talking to people and uniting people.
Mm-hmm. Right. So like, what if there was no podcast or YouTube?
Well, I think that comes down to just communication. I think like that's, you know, a natural strength I have is communication.
Mm-hmm. And what is your message?
I don't know. It changes every day.
But like underneath it all, like, you know, I mean, and you've chosen, I mean, you're not like, I'm not talking to a guy who's like unboxing cell phones on YouTube. You know what I mean? Like, I'm not talking to a guy who's just like, you know, playing video games. Like, I'm talking to a guy who's talking about these topics.
Oh, well, I guess my underlying thing is like, think for yourself. You know, I think that's like, even if, you know, I talk with a lot of people that maybe even haven't done psychedelics yet, but the underlying theme of most people that I resonate with and my communication resonates with is people that like you want to experience and not just be told what life is and what there is to life, you know?
Mm-hmm. Right. So that's important.
Yeah.
And is it important even if like you have to walk a dog?
Yeah.
Yeah. You see what I'm saying? It's like, this is why we do preparation work. Is like, you know, it's like we want to set up a journey that sort of like helps, you know, that give with some direction.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's like, I always love when I get to have hands on somebody before they're going to their journey.
Yeah.
Is like, you know, like, how do we like stand in our power even when things are difficult and even when things are even so mundane that they're just so boring, you know, that like, you know, it's so much less fun than just like shooting through the stars.
Yeah.
And, you know, I was talking to somebody recently who, you know, the material world is a little less, you know, we're living in, you know, we're kind of living in these weird end times, you know, where there's kind of no good solutions to a lot of our problems in the material world.
Yeah.
You know, it's like nobody knows where they're going to be able to live, where they're not going to get shot up, or they're not, you know, going to have some kind of like fire or flood or some kind of natural disaster. And, you know, nobody's making the kind of money that they want. And, you know, so it's a whole big mess. But, you know, it's like all we can do is like work on our heart.
Yeah.
You know, work on our mind, like you're saying. It's like, you know, whether you move to Iceland or whether you move to New Zealand or, you know, or the woods of Maine, it's like you're going to take your heart with you.
Mm-hmm.
And so, you know, it's like, how do we set up our journeys so that we're purifying the heart and making it strong and making it able to like face, you know, the challenges of the day.
Yeah.
Is there any prep work that's something that you suggest to most people or something that the listeners could use for their own trip? Because that's something that we talk about all the time is pre and post trip. And I think that would be super useful. I'm actually tripping coming up here in about 2 months. So actually 2 months to this day.
Do you have an intention for your trip?
Yeah, figure it out. A couple personal things as well as like a life kind of dedication, I guess you could say.
Do you feel comfortable sharing any of that?
Yeah, sure. Well, I mean, I really think the majority of my problems boils down to, or I shouldn't say problems, worries or like personally inflicted issues comes down to not having a purpose that I feel is beneficial to the rest of the world, or that I'm giving back with. I do web development, so it's serves its purpose, and I do see the value in the companies that I work for and all of that. And I have taken that perspective from time to time. But the way I look at it is it's just like a one-off situation where I get paid and they get their website, and there's really no future good that goes on beyond that. Or maybe I'm a little bit greedy with how much good I want to provide. But so I really am just trying to figure out, what if I detour, or not detour, but if I derail from this, or just look at this as just income and figure out what to do with my spare time until that can become my income. It's figuring out that, what I'm supposed to turn to. And, the prep work I'm doing as of right now is just, meditating, journaling. I'm going to start back up doing yoga here soon. And then at the end of this month, or a little bit sooner, I'm going to start doing like a cleaner diet a month out from the experience.
Right. So what I heard sort of, it's something around purpose and giving back. And then there was a lot of details around that.
Mm-hmm.
Is that fair to say?
Yeah, definitely.
So let's say you take this journey. Like, I just want you to vision you do the journey, and it's like it's successful beyond your wildest dreams.
Mm-hmm.
What has happened?
I think it's just finding the energy to follow and pursue the passions that I have in life again, which I feel like I have lost, not because of laziness, but more so because of a need for financials. Yeah.
So I would like you to sort of chop that down a little bit. Like what you just said, like you talked about. So I've heard words like purpose, giving back, energy, and passion.
Mm-hmm.
So what I'd like you to do, and then there was all of this other story, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I want you to sort of like trim the fat, and I wanted to create sort of like a mantra-sized personal intention phrase.
Okay.
So can you take all of that stuff that you just told me and just like cook it down like into like its barest essence?
Yeah. I could try. I'd say to find a purpose that provides me daily energy and provides the world something that I'm giving back to. I'm sure I could rework that better, but
cool.
Something
right.
along those
yes,
lines.
Well, now I want you to again cut it in half.
Um
And I'm giving you like we're doing this kind of condensed, it's like we might do this. This is a thing that might take an hour or two.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
So,
no, it's
so
working
I
my
appreciate
mind.
you going with it.
Cool. I would say finding a purpose of giving back with energy.
Cool. Now, I want you to clean it up a little bit, and now while you do that, I want you to stick an I at the front of it.
Okay. So an I desire, or like an I want to blank, or how?
Well, we'll do that, and then I'm gonna refine it again. So just
Okay.
Anything with an I in front, because I want it to be personal, right? We're going for personal.
So I would say I want to find a purpose that includes energy. I don't know how to condense it even more. I would say that I want to find an energetic purpose of giving back. That's pretty condensed.
Cool. I want to find an energetic purpose of giving back. Now, what I want to change here is what has happened is like it's not immediate enough. right? You've got it all, like you've got some desire wrapped up in it. Like, so it's like, you're basically, I want, it's like, oh, this is a thing that I don't have that I want to find. I have to go looking for it. This is all like in the future. So I want you to like make it like immediate and present.
That's the challenge.
Right. I want to find an energetic purpose of giving back, but just like boom.
Yeah, I don't know. That's the only I got is I don't know. Like I understand what you're saying with the desire wrapped in it and also find, but it's more of a finding of like within, or like I wanted to like tap in within.
Right, but what I'm asking you to do is to act as if it is now.
No, I understand that. It's just I understand, yeah. I would say it's just I am an energetic. It would have to be like an I am the purpose of. I don't know. I can't take the next step there.
Okay, so then at this point, that would be your homework. Right, like that would be the preparation thing that I would ask you to do. Is I would, it's like finding a mantra of like, I am, it's like I am energized, or I give back, or something of that nature. And I'm, it's like I so appreciate you allowing me to put you on the spot like that.
No, absolutely. I want to do stuff like this to not only help myself, but like I said, helping the listeners is very important. Yeah, no, I'm gonna have to work on that, definitely. And is that something that you do with most people that are preparing for an experience?
Always.
Yeah.
Always this, and then I bring the body along for the ride too, because it's like, you'll get somebody who's like, well, I sort of feel like I should probably write a book. And I think like I could do it, and I've been sort of wanting to for a while. And and you look at them, and they're like kind of like drawing their toe in the carpet, and their weight shifting back and forth, and their eyes are all over the place. And you just sort of like work with them until they're just like, I am a book.
Yeah.
Yeah.
With their feet planted, and their their root like engaged, like their spine tall.
Yeah, I've actually had an experience like that in the past, where a big passion of mine is music, and with music, it is not only a steep learning curve with what I want to do, but just the time is needed. You need the time to practice and perfect and perform all of that. And I kind of lost sight of the creative side of myself, which I've always been creative, even with the web work that I do. And I lost sight of that, and I was working a desk job at the time, and I had a pretty good dose trip and pretty good experience, pretty impactful and powerful. It threw like a lot of left turns and figuring stuff out. But at the end of it, I had the realization that I am this musician, and I am this web developer, or I am this creative web developer, or I am this creative. I'm just not acting on it. And or the biggest one for me was I wasn't eating healthy at the time, and I put on a decent amount of weight, and it was, I am this healthy person. You just forgot you're not eating good, know?
Yeah.
And, the next thing I know, 2 months later, I'm down 30 pounds because I'm working out every day. I'm doing yoga every day. I'm eating health. I'm eating natural every day. Nothing processed. And all of a sudden, I'm finding time for creativity instead of video games or whatever else I would distract myself with.
Right.
Yeah.
And so how does that feel in your body when you think about that?
Oh, it feels great. I mean, that's why I think I continue to dive back into the waters, is because sometimes I just need the reminder.
Right. Now, having said that, like, because your whole vibe changed when you started talking about that,
Mm-hmm.
does that bring any more resourcefulness to this intention practice?
Yeah, absolutely.
So is there another round of stuff? You got
I still
another...
think the problem with the other round of stuff is that I'm having a hard time grammatically figuring out adding those three things together in one.
So it's just grammar.
Yeah. But
Okay.
I could say I am that, and I am that. Three separate sentences.
Oh, let me hear that. Let's at least get that out.
Okay.
Let's get that out.
So you got the I am energetic.
Yeah.
I am the purpose. And I am, I guess, the person that's giving back.
Uh-huh.
And there you go.
Cool. Right, good. I'm glad. Thank you.
Yeah.
It feels much more complete. It doesn't have to just be one I am.
Oh, see, that's what I was trying to meld them all together.
Right. See, this shouldn't be rushed.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
But I'm glad we got there. That feels good.
No, definitely. But yeah, it's crazy because, that I think that's something that's common in a lot of people's eye-opening experiences, that maybe they haven't had such a dramatic reaction to it before, is just the perception that you had. For me, it was like, as a kid, like, I knew I was these things, and I just had gotten lost on the way, and I ended up working a desk job somewhere I didn't want to be, away from my family. And it's just like, wait, but remember, you were this and that, and you still are this and that, so go and do it.
Mm-hmm.
And like I said, I mean, the physical results were there, and that was the weight loss. The mental dedication results were there, and that was in I think that was when I just started my business. So it was all these things that were a result of that trip that kind of was the launch pad. And I haven't had an experience since then, and that was about I would say 2.5, 3 years ago. So I just know I need the gentle kick in the ass, or maybe the rough kick in the ass, and the reminder, and that's why I'm diving back in.
Yeah. Yeah, one of the nice things about cutting the fat out and keeping it simple is the mental processing works different in those spaces.
Mm-hmm.
It's sometimes, the ability to kind of keep it simple and to direct the attention to the intention, as it were, can do a lot of good. It can save us a lot of time if we just do it ahead of time.
Absolutely. Is there, are there any other, is yoga or meditation something that a lot of people do before their practice, or is it something
hopefully
that, you see it being beneficial in people's stories?
Yeah. And there's even research at Johns Hopkins, they did research on it. That people who meditate and they give them psilocybin, they have easier times. As far as I can tell, the big three that are really useful is the ability to direct the mind's attention, right? To be able to have some sort of control over the mind in some ways. And I know that, in a lot of ways we want to surrender, but at the same time, we want to be choosing that. We also want to, have some sort of present awareness that's not just getting whipped around. And that can relate a lot to the second thing, which is kind of having an understanding of mental and emotional difficulty, right? It's almost like basic Buddhist psychology. We all have desires and we all have fears. And if I don't want to look at my fear, I'm just going to go running around saying everything is scary. Everything's going to seem sinister if I can't own my fear. Because everything isn't sinister. You're probably with a couple of friends in a pretty decent place, all things being equal. But, it's not that it's sinister, it's that you're afraid, right? It's not that, people hate you, it's that you're insecure.
Yeah.
Right? And at the same time, sometimes everything seems sacred and beautiful because ultimately we are sacred and beautiful. And so not to forget that, and, having some ability to kind of direct the mind, so that we can see it, so that we can orient the mind to see what's happening with the mind is important. And then also, having some ability to work with your body, to move energy through your body. Because there have been times when I've been having a bad time and I didn't know what was wrong and I couldn't figure out what was wrong. And then I just noticed that like my shoulders were tense and I relaxed my shoulders and everything chilled out. There have been times when I've taken 3 deep breaths and like the whole world lit up, with love and light.
Oh yeah.
Recognizing that your body is a conduit, right? And that we're trying, one of the purposes of the meds is to program it to be able to like channel more light and love. As near as I can tell, like I can't figure out what would be a better use of my body other than channeling light and love, right? It makes a lot of sense when like nothing else does. And so, the yoga practices, I mean, a lot of those yogis were getting high. There were definitely yogis, magicians, and sorcerers that were using various medicines. And they knew that they had to kind of get the kinks out of their tissues, right? Get the old trauma out, right? Because we know that the old trauma like manifests as tension.
Yep.
Weird habits and patterns in the body. And doing some practice to kind of get that stuff out will make us a lot looser. Because we're so conditioned that this is supposed to be excruciating. That doesn't have to be. You're with all this medicalization, we're allowed to have a good time. We're allowed to enjoy ourselves. It's okay.
Yeah.
And it's helpful, if we do the prep work, we open up our body, we nourish our body, we calm our minds, we're going to have a better time.
Yeah, I definitely, had a pretty like enlightening time on a LSD trip over Memorial Day weekend that I had where I was having a good time, and then I started having muscle tightness and stuff like that, and that started affecting my mind, and it was I was trying to listen to some music or I was trying to like do all this stuff to like kind of distract myself from it. And at the time, I've been talking with a lot of people about meditation and stuff like that. And I had been trying to just do like silent meditation and then just getting frustrated with myself that like all I'm doing is sitting there, with rambling thoughts and getting upset about that and trying to watch my thought, trying to follow all the advice about silent meditation. But at the same time, I'm also, tripping on acid. So it's kind of hard to master silent meditation in that state when you're not used to it. So I had decided like, all this music was actually even scaring me too. And so on my Spotify, I had a guided meditation that I played just for like my kids to go to sleep. And one of the ones that the lady had on there, and it was like the first one I could like touch, was for muscle relaxation. And I was like, well, sweet, I'm going to do that, and it totally like it went through, kind of the countdown of like, relax your toes, tighten your toes, relax your toes, tighten your calves, and went through all your muscles. And, and I've talked about this in a podcast for anyone that listened to it, and, I'm repeating myself, but I, went through all that and didn't realize, kind of the point of that guidance is to actually, get you into your subconscious and relax your muscles. But once I went through the muscle relaxation, kind of countdown, I totally reached this, like kind of my body went away and I was in my subconscious, and it was such a amazing experience that it actually is like from that day on, I've meditated almost every day, but instead of trying to master this thing that I'm just getting frustrated and I'm full of self-doubt and stuff, I've been doing a lot of different guided meditations, and I've noticed a big difference in it. All the things I was frustrated about, not eating better, not going to the gym enough, not, walking the dogs enough, whatever. It's been so much easier to do with just having this 20 minutes a day of guided affirmations and mantras like you're talking about, that having those I am kind of moments for 20 minutes a day and cutting everything else out has really been beneficial. And so much that I've actually, in the past 2 weeks, I've started involving my kids in that. My boys are 10 and 5. And we have, for the past week and a half, we have meditated for 20 minutes every day. And yeah, I found like some ones that are focused towards kids, but also just, like one that talks about just this mantra to say in your head about sending loving kindness to different people and all these things that it talks about forgiveness for people that made you feel bad, stuff like that. And I've noticed such a huge difference in my kids too. And it's like, I don't know, it's really changed my view on meditation and like the benefits for the body too, because like I said, it has been the motivation I've looked for to get back to working out. Cause like, earlier this year, I was going to the gym every day. I was eating excellent. And then once like I fell out of my routine because my kids were out of school, I just was kind of freewheeling. And for like a month or 2 months until I had this meditation experience was like, I don't know, I can't get back into it, and I really, I saw that on your website that, that you say all the literature on psychedelic preparation and integration suggests the same thing: meditate, meditate, meditate. And I totally like, if from now on, when I get questions about like, I'm not doing this right, what am I doing wrong? Like that is going to be one of my first things, is going to be like, take meditation seriously, and that it's such a, the mind body connection. There's no better way to like really complete that.
Yeah. And there are some various sort of meditation-ish instructions on my blog. Every once in a while, like I will throw out a sort of a mini practice that people can do. So some of those are in there, but you definitely hit the nail on the head. And I think it's awesome that you're getting your family to do it with you.
Oh, I know. Well, I saw some article, and it was probably something on Facebook. I'm not real sure, but it was about some school that, has 20-minute like meditation mindfulness. And it showed these pictures of all these little kids sitting there, sitting in the lotus position, meditating. And I was like, yeah, that's the time. Like everything I try to get my kids to do, like they at least try it, and it's like, it isn't until you're adults that you have this ego that's built up to such a point that you're like, that's bullshit, and kids are like, yeah, I'll sit down. And like, I don't think it would work for like, all right, we're doing silent meditation for 20 minutes, but the guided thing works. And they, these are two rambunctious boys that jump around the house nonstop all the time, unless you put a screen in their face. But all of a sudden, putting some calm music with someone talking about sending loving kindness to your friends and family, they sit down for 20 minutes and they don't get up. They don't get bored. They don't go do anything else. Like they just do it. And I had thought about it and not done it until the last week and a half, because I was telling myself, they're not going to be able to do this. They're not going to do it, and it's like, I had already, made their mind up for them, and so like, I just decided I'm not going to make their mind up for them, and I'm going to do this. And like, if I'm going to make it part of my routine, they need to be part of that too. And, and we've done it at night with my wife too. And it's in just a week and a half, I've seen such a major difference. And I definitely urge people, not just for psychedelic preparation, but if you've got kids that are rambunctious and, before you put them on medicine, like at least maybe try meditating with them first,
Right. So, hey, gentlemen, it's late.
Yeah. But it was a great talk, man. Definitely thanks for coming on, and go ahead and plug all your stuff one more time.
Plug all my stuff. Well, tamintegration.com. If you want to get in touch with me, you can get in touch with me. I probably won't answer long emails, but I'll maybe get on the phone with you for a little bit, and check out the Psilocybin Summit. Thanks so much for reaching out and having me. If I'll see you guys in your little Discord channel.
Absolutely.
All right. Thank you so much.
As always, thank you for listening to the Help Find the Others podcast. Please don't forget to check out our Discord server to connect with our growing community. The link to join can be found in the description. And if you feel like donating to our channel to help us grow, a link to our Patreon can also be found in the description, as well as some cryptocurrency wallet addresses. If you would like to be a guest on the podcast or have any questions about these topics, please email helpfindtheothers@protonmail.com. If you would like to leave a voicemail or a text message question for a future episode, Stan, what's that number again?
567-233-1335.
Okay, guys, thanks again. And until next time, let's help find the others.